everyone, and welcome back. It's Gina from orchidandopal.com, and I'm back with a tutorial with products from beebeecraft.com for this month. Everything I'm using in these pendant necklaces is actually from their site, except for my beading needle and my beading thread. So lots of products from there that I'll be using today to share some in-use looks at these products after I have shared them with you guys right after they had been shipped to me. So you might remember some of these products. We'll be using some of these oval connectors. These frames that are framing out these pendants actually came in this kit, which came with an assortment of all different types of open bezel pendants and all kinds of jewelry frames. The little round agate beads that are surrounding these pendants came in an assortment of agate in all different colors. I had picked up the horse's eye stones that you can see in each of these different colors in sets of 5 from them as well. And then I'll also be using those hex cut seed beads that I picked up from them in that set they sent with all these different colors. So I'll leave the links to everything I'm using today right down below the video as usual, as well as a full list of materials. And I have a coupon code for Beebeecraft. It will save you $5 off your purchase of $40 or more, and that code is OPAL5. So you can use that. And also they offer free international shipping on any order over $25, no matter where you're located. Just allow 2 to 4 weeks for your delivery, just in case. Here's a close-up look at the pendant we're going to be creating, and you might notice I have one color out of the 5 different colors of these agate pendants missing, and that is the purple color. So we're going to be making a purple one today. And then just quickly, here is a look at the back before we get into it. That's where we're going to be using that oval frame to frame out the back and make this really sturdy and nice looking. So I'm going to go ahead and pull these specific products that I'll be using today for the purple version, and then we'll get started. All right, so here's what we're going to be using today. I have 2 different colors of those size 11-0 hex cut seed beads. You could use delicas in place of these if you wanted to. For example, you don't have to use these specific hex cut. I was just trying to use everything from Beebeecraft in order to make this project. I also have some of those little 4mm agate rounds, the oval, the frame I'll be using, and then that beautiful agate stone in the horse's eye shape. Once the beading is done, we'll simply be stringing it on one of these purple necklace cord and ribbon combinations that I just picked up and shared last month that already has the clasp and the extender chain in place. Of course, you'll need scissors, and I will be using some 6-pound Fireline for my beading thread and a size 11 beading needle. You can use a size 10, 11, or 12, whatever you're comfortable with. And I'm gonna start out with about 5 feet of thread and probably have to add some more as I go. So if you're making this with me, you can go ahead and gather up your materials and we will jump into this tutorial. First, what you want to do is decide what color you want to be on the side of your agate piece and what side you want to be kind of surrounding the top. So I think I'm going to do the dark purple around the sides. You can see how I have the 2 different colors there. And then I'm going to do the lighter shade around the top. So if you're using 2 different colors, just decide which color you want to use around the side of your agate pendant first, and that's what you're going to want to start out with. Now, for those of you who have never wrapped or bezeled a stone before with seed beads and have done kind of that peyote stitch bezel around the stone, the procedure is pretty much the same no matter what shape the stone is. And the first step to doing a beaded bezel around the stone is to first just string enough seed beads on your thread that will wrap around the outside of the widest portion of the stone. So that's what we're gonna do first. With the other agate pendants I had, that would be about 48 seed beads. So I'm gonna go ahead and string those on, and then we'll make sure that those will be enough to wrap around the stone. All right, so I brought the 48 beads down toward my tail thread. I'm leaving enough tail that I can weave back in later. And this is where you want to, before you scrunch them all together, if you were separating them, really double check and make sure you have a set number of seed beads on your thread. You want to make sure you have an even number. That is the main thing. And then also the 48 number, that's going to work out best for what I'm doing today with this particular size seed beads. Now, even though these are considered size 11, these may be a little bit longer than some other brands, especially if you're just using round seed beads or delicas. But the main thing is just make sure you have an even number, and then you're going to gather the seed beads in a loop in your fingers, kind of like this, holding the seed beads together. And then you're going to just test and see if that is kind of the right amount that will fit snugly around the stone or whatever it is you're wrapping. Like I said, it doesn't have to be this project, but this is pretty much the same if you're doing any kind of a beaded bezel, particularly with the peyote stitch. So I'm good with the 48, and I can move this out of the way. And what we're gonna do is bring all of these beads together in a loop. So I'm gonna take my working thread with my needle, and I'm just gonna go through some of these seed beads, not all of them, but just a few of them. And pull that together just so that this starts to form a loop. Now I'm not gonna make a knot here or anything. I've left enough tail thread that my beads are probably not gonna slide off or anything. I'm comfortable with that. And by not making a knot, that allows for this to kind of have a little bit more flexibility when we are shaping it around the stone a little bit later. So I've gone through about 10 of my seed beads, just enough to get that loop form, but not necessarily go through all of them. And now what we're gonna do is build up this with peyote stitch. So we're gonna pick up one seed bead, skip over the next, and go through the next one. Keep doing that all the way around, picking up a seed bead, skip over the next one, and go through the next. So skip over every other seed bead, pick up another one, skip, and then go through. You're gonna be doing this all the way around, and we're going to be actually doing this probably about 4 times to build up this ring of peyote stitch. So keep picking up a seed bead, skipping over the next, and going through the next. And you can see what happens is it's forming a sort of shape like this, where you have a pattern of 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, and so on. And that's how you're gonna know when you get back to where you started, once you end up right before that first set of 2. So keep going all the way around, then we'll meet back and I'll show you how to step up if you're not familiar, so you can start a new row. All right, so when you are about done with your first row, you're gonna have something that looks like this. I'm coming out of this seed bead here, and then I have 2 more singles before I get to a double. Picked up my last seed bead, gonna skip over the next one just like I did before, and then go through that single and also step up and go through one of the second seed beads there in the first set of 2. That's gonna get us to our next row. When we pull this all together, you can see now we have this complete ring of the pattern 1 and 2, 1, 2. I'm coming out of this one here. So I'm gonna continue with another row, adding in 1 seed bead in each of these gaps. So now that we have this kind of set up, it becomes a little bit easier to keep going. And just like we did before, I'm gonna pick up a seed bead and then go through the seed bead that's popped up here next. So skip over that single and then go through one of the doubles. Pull, pick up another seed bead, and go right through the one that's sticking up. And keep filling in those gaps all the way around. Just like that. And you can see with this row, now you have rows of 2 seed beads starting to form stacked on top of each other. They're still varied in height, but they are now, instead of 1 and then 2, you have stacks of 2. So keep doing that all the way around till you get to your last single, and we'll meet back at that point. All right, so here we are with another row just about complete. And you can see what it's doing is it's starting to form a cylinder. Once you start pulling this together, you're making a round peyote shape that's just stacking on top of itself, which is what we want to start out with to wrap our stone. So I am ending right here where I have just a single left, and I want to step up again. So I'm going to pick up another seed bead, skip over the single, and go through the next double, and then the next double. So you should have now a ring of 2 seed beads stacked on top of each other all the way around, just like that, that are just variegated in their height. And now that we've stepped up, we can continue on. So we're just going to make a whole nother row with a seed bead popped into each of those gaps once again, picking one up and going through the one that's sticking out, picking one up, going through the next one that's sticking out. And just make sure that you're doing that on the same side and you're not flip-flopping sides. That way your piece will stay nice and straight. So I'm going around what is now the right-hand side and adding in another bead in between each of those gaps. Once we get to the end of this row, we will put this around our stone again and just take a look and see how it looks. Make sure that we have the correct height that we want, and we can decide on whether or not we want to move to our next color, which is what I did in the other examples. I stopped after this point with the color on the side, and then I switched to a different color just to accent around the top and bottom of the stone. So it's totally up to you if you just want to keep going with the same color, or if you want to switch it up like I showed in the example and like I'm gonna do in this tutorial today. So we're just making our way back, and I will come back once I am about finished with this row. All right, so you can see my ring now has a pattern of 2, 3, 2, 3, and I'm getting to my last one where I've picked up another seed bead. Gonna skip over this one, go through that last one that just has the 2 there, and then we're gonna step up by going up through the 3rd seed bead on the next row. So I have my 2, 3, 2, 3 pattern, and I think for now I'm going to just pull this tight, make sure it's in a nice little ring, and I'm gonna switch to my next color, which is that lighter color. And we're gonna start working on shaping the back of the piece a little bit before we even get our agate over here to test the shape. So let me get my other color. All right, I now have my other color, and I have stepped up. I'm coming out of this one of the 3 rows, and I'm gonna pick up another seed bead. And we're gonna do the same thing. We're just gonna fill in each of these gaps with one of the new colors. And that's how you switch colors in one of these peyote bezels. You just step up to a new row, and then you introduce your new color by adding that into the gaps of the beads from the row before. And like I said, this is gonna start our work on the back, and then we're gonna begin cinching this up a little bit so it fits nicely around that cabochon shape. So keep going till you get one of each of these new colors in between each of these gaps, and then we'll meet back and begin our next row. All right, so last one goes in there in that gap, and then we'll go up through the next two in order to step up again, pulling this nice and tight so it's in our ring. And this is what we have so far. So I'm gonna bring back that stone, and we're gonna begin the process of shaping these beads around the stone. And like I said, we're gonna be working on the back at the moment. And what we need to do is we need to make this ring begin to get smaller. We need to get it to shrink so that it creates a little cup for this to sit in. So typically that's done by switching to a smaller bead at this point, or the alternative is to skip over some of the gaps altogether and start cinching it in. And that's what we're gonna do, just because for this tutorial I'm using all the same size seed beads, just because I want to use the same products from Beebeecraft to show you how I did this. So I think our height is good so far. It seems like this side that we've created, it is just right for the side of the cabochon, and we'll be cinching up the front as well, but not yet. All right, so I know from doing this before, for mine, I'm going to be popping in 10 seed beads around this side, then bringing these 3 together by just going straight through them, doing 10 more seed beads, and then bringing up the 3 on this side. That's gonna create those pointed ends that I want to shape around that particular stone. And if you're using a different kind of stone or a round stone, of course that process would be a little bit different. But for this shape, I wanna start just shaping it up kind of like this. So just like I did before, picking up a seed bead and just going through the next one. I'm gonna repeat this, like I said, 10 times with the number of seed beads that I'm using. That seemed to work out pretty good. All right, so I've added my 10 on this side, and then I'm going to skip through the next 2. Which is going to leave these 3 seed beads right here, kind of like at the top of that section. And then I'm gonna add in my 10 more, one at a time. All right, and I'm just adding in my 10th one. And we want to just go through the next 2 without adding anything else. And also step up to the next row. So I'm going through that next one, and then I'm gonna step up through that one up there. And when we pull this gently, you can see it's just starting to form that little kind of football shape. And we're gonna keep going with another row, adding 1 in between each of these single gaps. And then when we get to the points, we're gonna do something a little bit different. So just keep going until you get to that wider gap that we created before. And this is where we're gonna add 3 of our seed beads and then go directly through the next one that's sticking up, which happens to be over here. And you can see once you start pulling this together, that's going to start making that edge stay in that shape. And then continue on this side like we did before, adding in 1 seed bead in between each of these gaps on the other side. until you get to that opposite end. And there we are, and just like we did on the other side, I'm picking up 3 seed beads and skipping over that kind of wide section and going down through that seed bead on the other side, which is right before the next step up that is sticking up right here. And we're gonna also go through the step up, just like that. And when you pull it gently, now you can really see that shape starting to form. And we're gonna take our agate, and I'm gonna flip this over since that is gonna be the bottom, and just pop this in and see how this is shaping up around our stone. So flipping it over on the other side. Now this isn't fully tightened up. We have some more to do. And I can see that I want this to cinch some more to really hold in this stone. Before we move any further, I just want us to reinforce this whole ring of beads that we just added. So I'm gonna move this stone out, pick this up again, and I'm just gonna go through these beads 2 at a time, just all the way around. And that's gonna strengthen this area because we're gonna introduce that other little metal component that I showed you before. So going up through the next 2 beads. And I want this to be pretty strong. Not that I don't think it is already, but every little bit helps. And we've almost arrived at that section where we added the 3 seed beads. I'm gonna go through this next one. Then instead of going across through the 3 seed beads, we're just gonna go through the first one. We're gonna skip over the second one that we had added in there, and then we're gonna go through the third one. That's gonna help cinch it even more. And then just continue reinforcing like we did on the other side. And we've arrived at the other side, so I'm going through the one right next to those 3, and once again, like we just did, actually just gonna go through the first one of the 3, skip over the second one, and go through the third one. And then continue up to that step up, and give this a good cinch. All right, now we're ready to introduce this other metal component that's gonna sit right here, and we're just gonna sew it in, and we're going to go bead by bead basically and sew this onto the back, and it's gonna make it nice and stable. So I'm coming out of this seed bead down here, which is our step up, and I'm just gonna go ahead and kind of place this ring kind of sort of where it's gonna be. I'm gonna go through the ring with my needle, and we're gonna just start to tack it down. I'm gonna go back through the bead that I'm already coming out of, as well as that next bead that's a little bit lower, just like that. And it's okay that my ring has fallen down. We're gonna pull the thread, and you can see it's just starting to get tacked down, and it's gonna be easier as we go. Now I'm gonna go through the next seed bead that's sticking up. I'm gonna go up through the ring once again. And then having gone through the ring, I'm gonna go back through that seed bead that's sticking out, as well as the next one that is a little bit lower. And that's going to tack it down once again. So we already have 2 points where this is tacked down, and we're gonna keep repeating this step. So I'm going up through the ring and then back through the seed bead that we were just coming out of and down through the next one. So just take your time and keep doing that all the way around, going up through the next seed bead and through the ring, and then back around through the seed bead and the lower one, and then up through the next seed bead. And then once we get to this top section where we have those 3 seed beads, what I want to do is I'm going to continue on till I get through the first one and the second one. So I'm kind of right there in the middle or at that point. And I want to pick up another seed bead and then go back through that middle seed bead, and then go back through the one we just added and go back through both of these again, exiting out of this side of the one that we just added. Then I want to go around or through the ring, just like that. Go through the bead that we just added, and go through the ring, and then swing around it one more time. Then go back through the bead we had just added, go through that middle seed bead that's right next to it, and also tack this down to the seed bead behind that. So there are going to be 3 seed beads in a row right there. And then go back through that second seed bead and go through the one next to that again in the previous row, just that one, and then go through the second seed bead again. Now go through the first seed bead that we had just added, go around the ring one more time. Let's just match the number of loops we have here, and then go back through it to continue on tacking down the ring. So follow your thread path, go through the next bead, and then the next one until you get to the one that is sticking up a little bit, which is right here. Then go up through the ring and go back through the seed bead you just exited, as well as down through the next one that's a little bit lower. So just doing exactly what we did on the other side and then pulling that. Then go through the next one that's sticking up, go up through the ring, and then go back through the seed bead that's sticking up and the lower one right after that. Just take your time, just go a little bit at a time, and just keep shaping this so that your 2 ends are on the ends of these ovals and the sides are tacked down. So continue on till we get to the top of that, and then I'll show you how I'm finishing that up and we will move on to the next steps. All right, so I made it to the other end and I'm coming out of this seed bead right before that middle one of those 3 that are kind of sitting up there. I'm just gonna go through the metal ring and then proceed through that second or middle seed bead. And then I'm gonna pick up a new seed bead and tack it onto that one, onto the front like we did before. So I'm going back through the other side of the one we were coming out of. Then I'm gonna loop back through it, go through the second seed bead again. I'll go through the first one and I'll loop around the ring again here. Then go through the new seed bead we just added. And I'll loop around the ring. Then I'll go back through the seed bead we just added, up through the second one. And then I want to connect it to that seed bead, which is going to be sitting right in the middle, just like we did on the other side, just bringing all of these together. I don't want to pull too tight because they're already a little bit tight, so just be careful. I'm going to go through the second seed bead, back around this one in that next row to the left, loop around again, and just slowly try to bring these together. And I'm gonna even do one more loop around. And then just continue on. So I'm going through the next two seed beads there. And then getting back up to where we started, going through that one, the one up there. And then I'm gonna make my way to the front of the piece because this is pretty much all set for the back of the bezel. And let's pop in our agate. So that's perfect. It's gonna sit right in there like that. And when you flip it over, you can see that it's gonna sit neatly in that beaded area that we just worked on. At this point, since I am starting to run out of thread, I'm gonna go ahead and weave back in this working thread and my tail thread to get those out of the way. And then I'm gonna add some new thread and we're gonna get started cinching up the top section. All right, so I have my thread currently coming out of one of these beads over here. It doesn't really matter exactly where you want to have your thread coming out. Just make your way to the front of the beads and come out of one of these beads that are sticking out on the top row. And I have my agate set inside. I wanna start really shaping the front of the bezel around the stone, so I find that it helps to start to have your stone inside at this point. And I'm going to continue on with that other color, picking one up and just going through the next bead that's sticking out. And we're just going to gently cinch the top over the cabochon as we go. Probably just do a couple of rows on this side, just like we did on the back, because we don't want to cover up this pretty stone too much, but we want it to definitely be sitting inside securely so that it doesn't have any chance of falling out. So I'm just making my way up to the top or one of those corners, because we're gonna start right away by cinching up the ends. And I'm looking for the center of that end, and we know that it's going to be where those light colored beads are on this side, how they're kind of stacked up and they go around, and this dark bead right here is going to be the center tip of this end. So I'm going to pick up one more seed bead and go through this one, but then I'm not going to put a seed bead in the next little gap because I want that to start cinching up. So I'm going to skip this gap and just go right through the next seed bead, turn this a little bit. And that's going to start to pull this end together and give it that little pointed shape. And then we'll continue on with our seed beads until we get to the other side and do something similar. And after you put in each bead, just gently tighten what you're doing. Start to tighten it over top of the stone. And that's going to help it start to form the way that you want it to. All right, I've made it to the center, which is this stack of beads going to this. So I'm gonna skip over the next gap and just go directly through the next bead, just like we did on the other side. And I'm gonna start to tighten that and pull it just a little bit more. And then I'll continue with adding these light pink seed beads in to finish up and meet where I started. And I stepped up by going through that very first seed bead we had added in. So this is what we have so far. It's just starting to cinch over the top of the cabochon. Let's keep going with another row. Adding in another row of this lighter color, just one in each of these gaps until we get to the corner, and then we'll cinch it up again. All right, so on this corner, I'm gonna add my one more in that open section, but then skip the next one and just go directly down the next light pink one. And pull those together and then continue on and do the same thing on the other side. All right, going up through this one, on this corner, pulling, skipping that gap and going directly down through the next light pink bead. Starting to bring these together and even out each side. And then finish up with adding in those light pink beads until we get to where we started. This is where I really like to shape everything and make sure things are even, because this is where we're really gonna start tightening things down. Got one more bead to add in here, and then I'm gonna pop up through the next one. And there we go. That is the basis for our beaded bezel. This stone is wrapped up snug as a bug in here. Things look even and nice. And the last thing I'm gonna do is just reinforce this front section because we want it to be extra super tight. And you don't have to watch me do that. So I'm gonna go around and finish up reinforcing this. And then we're gonna get to work on the sides and we'll be almost done. All right, now let's work on the sides. I'm coming out of this seed bead down here. Let me just continue on and get over to one of the beads that I wanna be coming out of. Just gently following the thread path. And I want to be coming out of one of the groups of two of the darker seed beads, but I want to be coming out of the bottom one. So I'm just making my way over one bead at a time. And I'm gonna start with this bead right here. So what we're doing is we're gonna be making little strips of 2 additional seed beads onto the sides of this bezel periodically, kind of spaced apart, and those are what we're gonna use to attach the frame around the bezel. So from this point, and you can choose either color you want of your seed beads. I'll just go with the lighter pink again. And I'm coming out of that bead up here. I want to go back through the bead with my light pink one that I picked up. That's going to set that one into place. Then I'm going to go down through that new pink seed bead, pick up another one, go down through the first pink one, and set that next to it. So you see those 2 that are sitting side by side. That's what you want. Now I'm going to go up through that second one again. This is going to make it a little stronger. Down through the first one. And then I'm going to head through that same seed bead on the side where we started. So that's our first little group of 2. We're going to do this all the way around. And I'm going to go through this seed bead right over here, going one at a time. I'm gonna skip the next little section of 2 seed beads and probably do the next one as our next location for our second strip. So I'm gonna go through this group of 3, and then I'm gonna come out of this seed bead at the bottom of that little set of 2 dark ones on the side. And that's where we'll place our next 2. Picking up a light pink and going back through that dark seed bead. Very gently. Sometimes it's a little bit tight going back through the beads, especially when there's a curve or something like that. So you don't want to break a bead. I'm gonna go down through the one we just added, pick up another light pink, and we're gonna go down through the first light pink, back up through the second one. So this is like a ladder stitch, down through the first one, make sure they're sitting next to each other, and then head back through that original dark purple bead. Make sure your threads don't get twisted on the little section before it. All right, we'll keep moving on. Working through the beads one at a time. I'm gonna skip the next section of 2 beads. But I'm gonna come out of the next one and make another little strip there. Picking up a bead, going through, going down through that one again, picking up another bead and going back through that one. Going up through the new one. Down through the first one. And then through the dark purple on the side. All right, and so this is where we'll kind of start planning what we want to do with the edges. So if I were to follow my normal pattern and come out this one again, that's probably going to be where I want it, because then I'll have a strip here and a strip here. The main thing is when you are doing this, just make sure your sides are symmetrical. So if you have a strip on this side, you want a strip on the side equal to that on the opposite edge of your beadwork. And make sure you don't have too much of a gap on these sides where you're trying to add on that larger pendant, because the more little strips you have, the more secure it'll be. but this spacing works out well to add in those little agates in between. So I'm gonna keep going just like this, adding little strips all the way around, one here, here, and then opposite of these, and then finishing up this end. I'll have another strip right about here and another strip right about here. And then we'll meet back and we will continue on with the step where we will add the agate and attach the outer ring. All right, and welcome back. So here you can see I have all of those little tabs that we made in place, and it worked out really well with the count of beads that I had, basically doing the rows all the way around where there were 2 beads stacked up and skipping every other one. So pretty much every 4th bead is where I put a tab. And now we can start assembling this to our frame, and we also are going to be adding on our agates. I made my way up to this outer seed bead right here to position us in the right spot to move forward. And I'm going to pick up a seed bead, then an agate, and then another seed bead. And I'm going to go straight through to the next outer seed bead right there. Now I'm going to pick up my frame and kind of hold this piece in the center there. And to begin attaching this to the frame, I'm going to take my needle, go underneath the frame and the beadwork, and through that little opening right before this seed bead and right after the seed bead we just added. And when I pull that, you can see that it wraps a little thread around there. My thread is now positioned right here, and I'm going to go back through that second or outer seed bead once again to move forward. And we're going to repeat that. So I'm going to pick up a seed bead, an agate, and a seed bead. I'm going to go through that outer seed bead on the next tab, pull. I'm going to loop my needle around and up through that opening to secure the pendant right there. And then I'm going to go through the second or outer seed bead again. And when I do that and pull, I have another little loop of thread right here. So we're attaching this just like that all the way around. I'll do another one, pick up a seed bead, an agate, a seed bead, going through the outer seed bead of the next tab, looping around the frame and through, and then through that seed bead again. All right, we have another one. Seed bead, agate, and seed bead through the outer of the next tab, around and through, and then through that seed bead again. And then what I do when I get to this spot, I'm actually going to weave back down because I want to get my needle positioned here back to the beaded portion. So I'm going to go back down through the first seed bead there on the little tab. Then I'm going to make my way up to one of the seed beads in the middle. And you'll see what I'm doing in just a second once I get up there. All right, so I'm coming out of one of those top and middle seed beads, this dark purple one right back here. And I'm gonna attach another tab, and this tab is going to be about 5 beads in length. Let me get my other color for that. So I'm coming out of that middle bead. I'm just gonna loop back around with another seed bead, just like we did with our other tabs, except this is gonna be 5 beads tall. So just ladder stitching on these additional beads, and this is going to secure the top of the pendant to the top of the frame. So I'm adding my third bead. Then I'm gonna add my fourth bead, and we'll go back through these again to reinforce it. And I have one more bead to go. And I need to go back up through this one. And up through the fifth. Okay, so there's 5 seed beads added. And like I said, we will be tightening them up, but they are on there. And now what we can do is go back around the frame and through right before those 5 seed beads. And I am just tacking this down to the right side of the pendant frame first. Then I'm going to go through that 5th seed bead to get to the other side. And I'm going to go back around and through the frame to secure it to the left-hand side. And then I'm going to go back through that 5th seed bead and try to pull this so that that seed bead is sitting right at the top of the pendant. And let's go back down and just tighten these up a little bit. And we're going to go back through this whole thing again anyway, at least the agate portion. Just to make sure this piece is secure on the frame. All right, so I'm back down through the first seed bead of that tab, and I'm just going to continue on through these darker purple seed beads to get over to that other shorter tab on this side. So I'm just following the thread path. And I'm almost there. Okay, now I'm gonna go back through the first seed bead right there. And then through the second one. Now we're in our position to keep going with those agates. So just like we did before, seed bead and then an agate and then a seed bead. And then through the next tab. Around and through. And then through the seed bead. And repeat. All right, and I just made my way with my needle up to this center bead right here so that we can add another little tab down at the bottom to hold that middle section in place. I think we can do just 3 seed beads here on the bottom. I think we're gonna be good since we did 5 up at the top. The 3 will probably fill in this space just right. So we're doing the same kind of thing, just ladder stitching on 3 more seed beads right here at this other end. There's 2, and then 3. And then going back up that third one, and then doing kind of like what we did before, just looping around and through the frame, and then going through that last seed bead, and then securing this end. And then weaving back through those seed beads we just added. That'll stay in place once we tighten this all up. And then going back through that original dark purple and making our way over to this other tab that we need to tack down. And then through those beads. Adding in our agate here, so seed bead, agate, and seed bead, and then through the next outer seed bead on this tab. And then we can tack this down, so just around and through. And then we can continue through those seed beads and agates that we added. I'll just strengthen that a little bit more, so just going straight through those beads until we get to the next point that we need to add in and fill in that gap up there at the top. All right, so now we can add an agate in here. So I'm gonna pick up a seed bead, agate, seed bead, and I'm gonna go through the second seed bead from the very top. And while I'm here, I'm just gonna tighten this up a little bit more. So I'm gonna weave back through these seed beads just a little bit. And I wanna be coming out of the second from the top, which is that one, but I'm also gonna go through the top seed bead and just go around this one more time just to make sure this is nice and tight and tacked down at the very top before we move on. And now I'll go back down through this one and come out of the second from the top. Here we go, that's a lot tighter. All right, and now I'm gonna pick up the seed bead, agate seed bead, and I'll go through this tab. Then around and through to secure that one down. And then through that row of beads till I get back to the bottom, going through as many as I can at a time. Pulling that, you can see how this is all coming together and it's nice and neat. We just have one single wrap around each of these sections and we're just making our way back to the bottom. We're almost done. All right, now I'm just gonna add an agate and go through the second or middle seed bead there. And I'm gonna secure this tab again. So I'm going up through that last one and then around and through the frame, back through that top seed bead, around and through. Now we have 2 threads on each side, tacking that down and then just returning back through the seed beads. I'm also gonna tack down that bottom seed bead to the dark purple one more time and then work my way back up to that middle or second seed bead and add in the last agate. Go through the outer seed bead of that tab right there and then around and through just to make that very last tack down point and then continue through the outer seed beads. There we go. And this is where You can tie and knot off your thread. You can go back through the outer ring of beads and do that if you'd like, or return back to the beaded bezel or to the back of the piece. So I'm going to do that, and then we will come back and admire the finished piece on the necklace. Well, all right, everyone, if you made it to the end of this video, you are a true champion in my eyes. And here is the finished product. All said and done, there's a look at the back, the side, and the front. Isn't she pretty? So that is how I wrapped these horse's eye agate stones onto these frames with some of the agate rounds, everything from Beebeecraft.com, like I said. That was my inspiration. I will leave the links and the full materials list down below if you're interested in trying these out. And don't forget, you can use the coupon code OPAL5 to save $5 off your purchase of $40 or more at Beebeecraft and take advantage of their free shipping on any order over $25. Thank you so much for being with me. Feel free to leave me a comment down below. Let me know if you gave this a try. I'd love to hear about it. Don't forget, you can apply the same type of method to other shapes and sizes. It's all about wrapping that stone or cabochon snugly with an even number of beads and getting smaller as you wrap around the front and the back. So I hope you have fun bezeling. If you enjoyed this video, I would greatly appreciate a big thumbs up. That would mean so much to me. And please subscribe while you're here so you can be back for more tutorials and lots more beading fun. I'll be back again soon, but until next time, I hope you guys have a fabulous rest of your day. And as always, happy beading.